If you have ever considered working in pro sports as a physical therapist and you wonder, is it for you? In this episode, I'm going to tell you who it's not for, and do not work in pro sports if Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the podcast. Welcome all new listeners, and welcome back to those who have heard my content in the past. If you have ever considered working in pro sports as a physical therapist and you wonder, is it for you? In this episode, I'm going to tell you who it's not for, and do not work in pro sports if you got to tune into this episode. All right. Before I go on to the podcast, what is new in life? I have a lot of updates. I was having a meeting with a team member today, and I've been super emotional is a good word. Yeah, emotional. As I mentioned on my last podcast, my son graduated like pre-K or going into kindergarten, and that really hit my heart. And then recently, I've been watching my kids grow. My son Jacob just took his first step, and it's been confirmed 3 consecutive steps, and it's consistent. I love it. My daughter today went to school as a mermaid, and they were having like an outdoor water theme, something or another. And watching these kids grow, just it's been really eye-opening over the last week. Yes, I've been a father for years, but it has been hitting me harder than ever. That is the news for the week. Personally, things have been great. Fitness is back on track. I had in-laws in town, and they are now out and back home and safe. And now it's back to the grind, back to changing lives and upgrading people. So that is what's new. Going on to the podcast. All right, what are we talking about? Pro sports. All right. I labeled this, don't work in pro sports if. Why am I doing this? Okay, so I had somebody ask, should I do pro sports? Is it for me? Can I do this? What would it take? What does a lifestyle look like? And it's definitely not for everybody. I've done it. I've lived it. If you ask my wife, did she enjoy it as well? She didn't work pro sports, but she was with me along that journey. So I would say that she's worked with me in pro sports. I'm going to share all of that inside this podcast. And I talk about my wife because it's a big deal. Now, as I talk about working pro sports, if you have a spouse, a significant other, they're on that journey with you. So along the ride, a lot of you have the same like mission and vision as me, right? Like you want to I just got an email from somebody who signed up for my strength summit, and they said, I'm a second year student and I want to do a residency. I want to become a SES. I want to get my strength and conditioning certification. I want to do all these things. I want to work pro sports. And as I read these things and I see it, all I can give you is my reflections on what it felt like and what it's been like, because it's not for everybody. It's not for everybody, but it's for the person who, and then I'm going to describe that. So off of this, the discussion was, should I do it? What's it going to take? What I need to do to mentally be prepared for this? Because it's a big commitment. It's a massive commitment. And the last thing you want to do, and I tell this to my team, the thing you don't want to ruin is your reputation. Okay. You have to think about that long term. And I think nowadays, people change jobs so frequently. They're not so scared of that. But here's what I would say. In the long game, when you work pro sports, when you're involved in a community, your name is the only thing that'll stay with you. And especially in the pro sports world, it is a very small community. I still get text messages. I get emails about candidates they've applied to. I get constant reminders that it is a small world. I had somebody from Germany ask me if I knew anybody who was interested in a very high profile job. And I was able to submit that to other people who might be a perfect candidate for working for pro sports. And it's small. And the thing you don't want to do is ruin your reputation. So before you make a commitment, before you decide to do this to see if it's for you, this podcast can be perfect. All right. So here we go. Don't work in pro sports. All right. Please do not get mad at me as I give this information, because it is for your own good. I promise. I promise. All right. Don't work in pro sports if you want a work-life balance. all I hear today from uh, people all around me, I want a work-life balance. I want to be able to like go work, go home, relax. I want to have a good quality of life, right? I think since COVID, I think a lot of people have changed their perspective on what that means for them. And I respect that. I think that's very healthy. They want this work-life balance, and it's great. Don't work in pro sports then. Don't even consider it. Because if you want to go home after a great day working with patients and athletes, and you want to be able to like decompress, hang out with friends, go work out, do all these things, great. Because if you go in pro sports and you decide to take a job, that's not happening. Yeah, you'll get one day out of the week, or you'll get five, but it'll be very inconsistent. A work-life balance is very, very difficult to maintain. And now if you're married, you have a significant other, a partner, whatever it is, and you try and maintain that while you're in pro sports, not impossible, very difficult. Uh, the other day was, that's one of the updates. It was Father's Day, and it was my first Father's Day with Jake. And so that was fantastic. And as a father, what I've realized is that, when you're working in pro sports, you realize that you're going to give up a lot. You're going to give up a lot of your time, your work-life balance. And I think that what happens with your spouse is that you need to be able to maintain your fitness and your health, right? Now, I put a post out about Father's Day, and it was 4 recommendations that I've learned as a dad. And I think that my team is very aware of this, but I think that fitness, but besides, I said families first. And I think number 2, I forget number 2, number 3 was prioritize your health. Number 2 was be present. Number 3 was prioritize your health. And I think that that's a lot of things that people don't do. And especially as a father, or you have a spouse, you add all these other relationships, and you add, a higher work demand, your priorities for yourself drop. Why? Because you're going to take care of your spouse, you're going to take care of your job, and then you actually fail to take care of yourself. So I really feel that's important as a father, 100%. I think it's very important that people need to take care of themselves. And then secondly, when you are working pro sports, I also think that you forget that. You work so hard, you finally achieved your dream, you're in pro sports, and you have your significant other, your spouse, your partner, and they're like the dream like partner. You've achieved both dreams. But what you fail to do, and it becomes very difficult, is to prioritize your health. You like let the gym go, maybe you eat out a little bit more often. And so if that sounds like you, and you're like, but my health is priority, my work-life balance is priority, my fitness is a priority, then working pro sports might not be for you. And I think you have to understand that. I have so many third-year students, first-year PTs, 5-year out PTs who ask, should I do it? I don't have an answer. And those of you who know me, who've been mentored by me, I'm not going to give you the answer. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give you the options. I'm going to give you the bumpers, left and right. I'm going to tell you, here's where I would go if you want this, and here's the other direction. So here's a conservative, both sides of the bell curve. And if you decide to do it, that's on you. Only you can answer those things. So what I mean by that is, if you're looking for work-life balance, that's really hard. And that goes along with quality of life, right? So what does a weekly schedule look like? I mean, it depends. If you're in the NBA, you work in NFL, I mean, there's seasons, right? So in the season, you're going to have higher work demands, and lower season, off season, or preseason. So that's completely up to the unique setting. But what I would say is the quality of life will change. Now, professionally, I think that we have these like a Venn diagram, that I think that like your personal life has to be grounded, and then your professional life has to be grounded, and then your fitness and health has to be grounded. So all in this Venn diagram, at the center of it, if you can balance those things out, that's where your quality of life is the highest. And I think if you fail to manage the third part, which is your fitness and health, I think you have a hard time. So don't work in pro sports if you want a high quality of life with a great work-life balance. Now, that's number 1. Number 2 is, and please don't get angry with me, this is a very controversial topic for a lot of people, and that is a healthy relationship with your partner. My wife and I have had great talks about um, how we were able to have our marriage and have our relationship thrive in a very, very difficult time. Now, that's not easy, and it takes a very close partnership and communication to make sure that both people or both parties are on the same page. Now, I think one of the best things you can do, and my wife who will listen to this will attest to this, is that I think one of the best things you can do is have that conversation and say, hey, look, I need a couple years. This is like what I want to do. It's everything I've ever dreamed of. I would like for us to be able to take this move together, and I want to be able to achieve this. And the other person needs to know that, right? Everything about life, success is about expectations, whether it's a patient or an athlete and they want to get low back pain and maybe it's too fast, and you tell them that it's possible and you don't deliver, you set the expectation poorly. And I think that setting that expectation with your partner is very, very critical. So if it's the first time that they've heard of it and you decide to take a job, then that's really bad expectations. They didn't even know what they signed up for. They didn't even know what the ride was along. So I communicated that very heavily to my spouse and to my wife, and I said, I think the next step is to be able to take these jobs. And I don't know if she fully understood what that meant, because we kept going, like it just kept cascading into more opportunities, which is a good thing and very, very challenging. So along that route, all I can do was let her know what it meant to me and what it meant for our relationship, and how our lives were going to change. And if you don't know, and if you haven't listened to this podcast before, I got a job right before I opened up sports performance physical therapy in 2014. About a month prior, in August of 2014, I remember getting a phone call to get a job with an NBA team. And we had just moved to back home, and we were thinking about opening up this new company. And I remember thinking, should I do this? And we were looking at each other. We're like, no, we had just finished, I think, 5 or 6, 7 years of traveling and doing all these other things. She's like, don't do it. I wouldn't. I wouldn't. And she said, if that's important to you, we can go ahead and move forward. But I also understand that it probably wasn't ideal for us. So we declined the offer very respectfully, and it was a choice of both of ours to be able to do that. And I think that that's very important as you guys navigate what that means for your professional career. So if you're looking, don't do pro sports if you want a healthy relationship with a partner. And I say that respectfully, in that as long as you work on your relationship, then your job will be so much easier. If you assume that taking this job and then whatever you're currently doing now with your relationship is going to work, no, not going to happen, because that is a new form of relationship, because that spouse or the partner is now becoming a professional inside pro sports with you, because they're traveling with you, they're going to the games, they're part of the community, they are literally part of the team as well. It is a thing. I should mention there is a higher divorce rate in pro sports, and that I don't think that's anything shocking or new, but I think it's important for people to know. As I entered more and more of that world, I understood it becomes very challenging, especially in certain sports. And that's not talking negatively about anybody in pro sports. I'm just saying you need to know these things going in. So if you're interested, know that there's a balance on how healthy you can personally deliver with your spouse or your partner or your future partner. Now, if you're single going into this, that's a game changer. Now you have opportunities. There's not so much of that challenge. But as you meet somebody while you're traveling and doing pro sports, you will also have this challenge. At some point, you're going to have this challenge. So just FYI. Okay. Number 3. If you want to get paid top dollar. Now, what I mean by that is, all right, it's very tempting to think that in pro sports that you make this large sum of money, right? Some organizations, that's not the case. And what I mean by that is, think about how many positions are there, right? For every pro football team, the pro NBA team, how many clinicians do you think they bring in from a PT staff? One. Maybe one. Now I'm talking about like the full-time, like main physio, main PT, and that's one. So if there's X number of teams and there's only one clinician, that's very competitive. And a lot of teams know that. So they won't always pay top dollar. And don't get offended if you've heard like, oh, I've heard this company and this one. Great. I'm just saying in general, a lot of companies know how lucrative the position is. So they pay according to what the demand is. So if you have to navigate these things and understand that you're clearly, if you're going to decide to do this, you're not doing this just for the money. You're not doing it just to travel. You're doing this because you have an itch that you want to scratch. It's a thing that you've always dreamed about. I know it. I've lived it. I got it. I did it. I had a spouse who was amazing and patient, and we did it together. Now, if you're a student or if you're a new grad or you are 10 years out and you want to go back, good for you. Know that these are criteria that you need to know about. It's a thing. So if you're a student, you're listening to this, you're like, oh, well, maybe that's not for me right now, maybe down the line. And it's a conversation that I don't think a lot of people will have or share, because everybody talks about the glitz and the glamour, right? Like, should I do this? Is this the thing that I should be doing? And the reality is, if you consider all of these variables, then you can make a better decision for yourself. No one ever told me about this. And the interesting part is there's a balance. There's some full-time work. There's also some contract work. Now, if you're doing contract work, this could be like the best of both worlds, right? Some people will know that they want to take a full-time position somewhere, right? But also know that some companies will bring out contractors. And what that means is maybe they have their head physio, their head PT, right? And then they know that at peak seasons that they're going to have, a larger demand. They'll bring in people just to offset that. Now that's a great, everybody wins, because now you can do it like, I'm only going to do it for a season, and then I don't have to be committed all year long. Now that is an option that you may or may not have considered, and not every team does that. So you're going to have to do some research on like, how many people do you do? Do you have seasonal work? Can I volunteer? Can I intern? And just know that you can work up your ranks that way. Most of the work that I've done, I've been the employee there during the whole time, but I've also done a little bit of contract work. If you know that I've done some traveling with pro tennis that I did seasonal work for. And for me, I realized one of the hardest thing I realized is I lived in Europe and I was traveling. I think I did like 5 hotels in like 4 nights or 5 days or whatever it was, and we were just moving around so frequently that it was tough physically and emotionally, and on my relationship with my wife, about how am I going to do this for the long term. And it was hard because I was gaining weight, I wasn't eating the best food, and I wasn't working out consistently. I flared up my low back because I was carrying around a 30 to 40 pound, massage table, and carrying it from airports to cabs to hotel rooms, and I wasn't working out so much. And what does that tell you? Well, I was just a risk for injury, right? Thinking about that, right? I wasn't stabilizing, I wasn't strengthening, I was literally just rotating all day, and my back went out. And at that point, I kind of realized, all right, why am I doing this? I'm doing it because I want to do something for myself, profession, everything else. But truly, why am I doing this? And it was this sustainable long term? And I didn't think about all these variables before I got in. I just went with the notion of, it's in my head. If you're like me, when you have an idea, you're just going to go for it. Knowing what I know now, I would have second guessed that, or known or considered the expectations going in. So that's why I'm sharing this, because I know a lot of you have inquired, a lot of people want to do it. Is it for you? Sure, a different stage of life. I don't think it's just for when you're single or, just out of school. I think there's people who choose to do it 10, 15 years down the road. Nothing wrong with that. I think that you'll never age out of the opportunity. It's just, do you have the framework going in to make sure that this is the thing that you want to do? So Don't do pro sports if you want a work-life balance, a great quality of life, a healthy relationship with your partner. You want to get paid top salary. Is it for you? Yeah, sure. But it's a lot of sacrifice and a lot of hours, a lot of hours, a lot of hours. So even if you get paid top salary, you're putting in so many hours. How many hours? I mean, I can consistently remember doing 70 to 80 for weeks. And some of you are not even scared. You're like, oh, sure, no problem. I can do that. For how long? Are you talking about years, months? Are you going to be fulfilled by it? I don't know. But you better have some big internal drive to be able to do that. Now, I'm not deterring you. I'm sharing the things that worked for me. And I was grounded with, I'm going to continue saying this because I think it's so important. I was grounded with a great partner who was right there with me, who was there to support me. Now, if you're single, great, have fun. But if you have a partner right now and you're like considering, or maybe you're not married yet, and you're like, should I do this? Is this going to put a damper on a relationship? I don't think so. I think that you just need to communicate. That's it. Like you got to have that conversation many, many times over. Are there kids involved? Are there not? I think, okay, so this is interesting. I don't remember the stat on those with kids in pro sports, but I remember honestly probably 50%. And that was, if you can do that very well and have kids and travel and be involved, that is an art, and work out and be like physical top shape. Oof, that is, all three of those Venn diagrams are coming together, right? Personal, fitness and health, and professional. So good for you if you can manage that, but you have to have some really amazing organizational skills. So just to summarize, don't do pro sports if you want a high work-life balance, great relationship with your partner, work um, regular hours, if you want to get paid a top salary, and if you don't want to sacrifice anything. So I hope that helps. It is literally my story. I've done it. I did it for almost a decade, still over a decade. And even when I opened up Sports Performance Physical Therapy, I was still traveling, and that was crazy. For those of you who don't know, I opened up Sports Performance Physical Therapy in 2014, was still traveling and doing consulting work in Europe. And then I also helped with creating content and classes and coursework and teaching at San Diego State as we opened their first Doctorate of Physical Therapy program. So teaching, traveling, consulting, and opening up a new facility. So it's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of hours. Is it for you? Great. If it's not, consider all these things and don't do it if you want that work-life balance. So I hope that helps. And if you guys haven't yet, we have a lot of people who have been interested, but if you're still considering, first of all, I want to answer the question some people have asked for my strength and conditioning summit coming up next month, July 23rd and 24th of 2022, whenever you're listening to this. Yes, it will be hybrid, virtual, and in person. Yes, it will be recorded, and yes, you'll have playbacks. There's some people who are doing weddings or life or whatever it is on Saturday, Sunday. Those opportunities are there. Just reach out to me and let me know, and I will answer your questions. All right. I will see you guys on the next episode. Take care.